Onion sowing day. Should we be sowing onions now or holding off until spring? I like to go with the good old approach of, if in doubt, do both. So today I'm sowing my overwintering onions, and then really early next spring I will start another set. So I'll tell you about the varieties I'm going to sow and why I do it this way and why it works for me. We use onions loads in cooking here, so it does make sense to have a really good strategy for growing onions. I do find them relatively easy to grow, but they do need quite a long time, so it is worth making a bit of a plan to make sure that we've always got onions available. Quick side note, I am talking about growing onions from seed. I've never grown onions from sets. I've read too many horror stories about them just bolting immediately, so I am a seed onion grower and it's always worked for me, so I've never felt the need to try sets. Okay, the variety I'm going to be sowing today is the Winteria. It's from Real Seeds. It's an overwintering onion, so that is important to note that if you're sowing onions now in the late summer, you need to sow different varieties to the ones you would sow in the early spring. Only certain varieties can stand over winter and then not immediately go to seed in the spring, so make sure you're sowing seeds that are intended for overwintering when you are growing onions from seed. Now, I have not used this variety before. I've had luck overwintering onions before, but not this variety, but I cannot for the life of me find the variety that I used before, so we're trying a different one this year. It is this Winteria overwintering onion, a yellow cold tolerant onion for overwintering, so in late August for large bulbs the following year. So I will sow different varieties come the early spring next year, but that's a whole different thing. So why do I do both? Really, I'm just hedging my bets. If anything goes wrong with either, then I've still got a chance for good onion harvest. I like also that my overwintered onions come out a month or so earlier, which means that I get the space back in the early summer. So for those things that are going out once the soil warms up properly, like succession sown green beans and things like that, they can go in after my onions have come out, and I get to use that bed space twice. I also just really like being able to sow seeds at this time of year. Otherwise, everything has to be done in that early spring, mid-spring time, and it's easy to lose track of things. I never seem to sow enough onions when I only do one set. I don't know what it is, I don't know why I didn't just double up, but either way, this means I'm more likely to get the right number of onions. So onions that I will sow in the spring, I've had great luck with Ailsa Craig's this year. They have just sort of gone over outside, and I'm gonna go and harvest those in this video as well. And I will also do some shallots and some red onions. I've tried the Long Florence red onion variety this year and they've done okay. I think I still have some seeds, so I'll probably use those before I move on to something else, but that will be in the spring that I will sow those. So basically how I do it is sow a batch of onion seeds now, then they can overwinter, and then I'll sow another batch in the really early spring. So I've got two different sets of onions on the go. These ones I will use throughout the summer. They don't necessarily store quite as well in my experience once you've harvested them. So these will get used throughout the summer and autumn, and then my main crop, which will be the one sown in the early spring next year, will be storage varieties that can then hopefully be used throughout the winter. Then that way I've got onions to use for most of the year. Then to round out my onions, I also grow shallots. As I said, they store really well. They're a good fallback for when there isn't a lot fresh coming in. And then I also grow leeks, which are here. We tend to be harvesting leeks sort of January, February, March, which is great because it fills that gap when your storage onions might not be doing quite so well by then. And then I also have perennial onions on the go. So we always have a load of Welsh onions in the ground here. So they don't bulb so much. They're not a full replacement, but they're basically like a perennial spring onion in terms of use. So you've always got something oniony ready to go. All right, let's get these sowed. I definitely want to increase the number of onions that I grow this year. I tend to have quite good luck growing onions. I just never seem to have enough, and it's not because they don't grow well, I just never seem to sow enough. So I am going to be quite liberal this year with my seeds. Now I do sow like this. I used to sow individually into like cell trays and then plant them out one by one. This year I did it like this, in that I just sprinkled them in to some pots and then separated them out when I planted them out in the ground, and it worked completely fine. So this is a massive space saver. I've probably just sown 100 onions, and it's taken me literally a minute. So I get these covered up. Oh, this is quite dry, but don't worry, I will get them nicely watered in, and there we will have a good old load of onions for next summer. How easy was that? I'm tempted to do some more, because I may have just made the same mistake as before. How many onions do I need? That is the question. That's always the question. Always more than I think. So I've come out to the garden because today we are going to harvest some onions. The weather is about to turn for us. The sun's out today, but we're about to get a lot of rain in the next week or so. So I want to get these onions out while the ground is still quite dry. I alluded to earlier in the video, these onions have actually grown quite well. I just didn't grow enough of them. So we'll make sure we do a good number for next year. But here, all I'm going to do is pop the fork gently under each onion and lift them, trying to do as little damage to the bulb as I possibly can. Size of this one. Some of them are really good size. There's not many that aren't. I did have some spinach growing along here, and they shaded the back ones out. So the reason they're smaller is because they did get less light. So lesson learned there. They really don't like to be shaded out. As you can see, the foliage has gone over on most of the onions here. So this is the perfect time to be harvesting. I just shake off any extra soil. There we go. I've got bread in the oven, so I'm going to put you down and get on with this. Pretty chuffed with the size of this onion. I think this variety is Elsa Craig. It's the first time growing them, but they've done pretty well, and hopefully they'll store okay. What I'm going to do, as I say, because we've got rain coming, I'm going to pop these in the tunnel just for a few days, just to let the outer skins dry up. All of that dirt that's still left on them can be nice and dry, and I can just brush it off. And then I'll bring them in and to a shadier place in order to let them fully cure for a few weeks, and then hopefully these will keep us going for a little while. There is something really cool about harvesting something at the same time that you're sowing the seeds for the next round of that thing. It feels proper full circle. Whoa. Right, I need to go get my bread out of the oven. That is my absolute favourite bread at the moment. I'm making it with a malt flake flour from Nail Strips, and it's one of the artisan bread in 5 minutes a day bread recipes. If you've ever tried those, they are great. If not, you should. Anyway, in the time it took me to have some lunch, my blue skies have gone. So I am inclined to trust the forecast that's telling me that the weather is turning. So those are my onion plans. I know I can grow good onions. I've got the evidence of that. I just need to up the volume. So we've got some sown now. I'm going to sow more come probably February, March time, and then we'll have the leeks and the shallots and the perennial onions going in between. So all round onion plan, I'm very optimistic. If you have any other tips and tricks for making sure that you are never without onions in your home, then do share. Thank you.